Hello and welcome to the Matchbook Betting Exchange podcast as we look ahead to the Matchbook Betting Exchange Irish St. Ledger down at Limerick. I'm joined by a young man, Dylan Brennan, who has yet to be grizzled by the fact that he's backed too many losers in the past, so he's still full of enthusiasm. He's going to be doing the hard yards for us, picking a few winners, picking a few in the outright market. We'll take a look both back at last night's action, 6 heats of the Ledger, 10 heats coming on Saturday night, but more importantly, we're into it. The Matchbook Irish St. Ledger at Limerick Stadium should be fantastic for the next matter of weeks. Before we go on any further, before we get to chat to Dylan, just want to remind you of the bonus offer. If you sign up to Matchbook, bet €10, get €10 free bet. The bonus code is Greyhounds, all in caps, and who knows, you might just turn that tenner into €1,000 by the end of the Ledger. So we're straight into it. Dylan Brennan, a young man who knows plenty about his Greyhounds. Firstly, let's look back at last night. We had some unbelievable performances, a great start to the Ledger, 6 heats in all. I suppose you could say it served as a perfect appetizer to the competition starting ahead of us, Dylan. Fine displays, and I suppose Scarty Yank set the tone in the opening heat.
Yeah, straight away in 29.49, he was very good. Like last week was his first run in 6 months, so he didn't get much of a run, but he's definitely one to be keeping an eye on. You'd imagine.
And the fact that he's now with Pat Buckley, he's a dog we saw last when he was running in the Kirby Memorial down at Limerick. A dog who I would describe as a starter and a stayer, a dog that's a good trapper, and he stays on really strongly. His problem probably going forward is going to be that 50 yards into the opening corner, but no such problems last night. Faced an easy enough task in terms of there was no real early speed taking him on. And well, once you let him dictate out front, you see what he's capable of. He was balked in all sorts of trouble in his comeback run last week. Last night, it was just plain sailing from the front.
Yeah, like you said, there wasn't much early in it. On paper, looking at, you could kind of tell once he came away, he was probably going to make all the running, which he did. And 29.49, compared to the other heats where, a lot of the big ones got clear runs, and they didn't match the clock. So yeah, he's definitely one to keep an eye on going forward. And it was the start of a very good night for Pat as well.
Yeah, I was going to say that. So too was Pat Buckley, a man to keep an eye on, because not only did he have Scarty Yank, he also had, of course, Glenn Garbale. A sort of return to form for Glenn Garbale. I thought it was an unusual step to put him up to 750 yards for the Cambridgeshire. Never thought he'd really see out the trip. And he's had a couple of runs back in the Laurels, probably sharpened them back up again. Very impressive, winning in 29.60 from All for the Best, a real powerhouse. A dog who may prefer a longer run to the corner than he's going to get at Limerick. And of course, Pat's other winner was Sing Along Sally. What can be said about this lady? It hasn't been said. Dylan, she's a bit of a specialist when she's near the fence, of course, but she's run so well at Limerick in the past. And for people looking at an anti-post book, you could do worse than back Sing Along Sally, certainly if she was to get an inside draw most of the nights.
Yeah, exactly. I when you see her in the red jacket, it's hard to, she's going to take beating, no matter what's in it. She's just, when she gets on the fence, she's a different bitch. I actually thought the dog in second, Deirdre Sidney, I thought on a massive race. You're talking about the anti-post market there. I actually came away from last night now, to be honest, wanting to back Deirdre Sidney for outright. I thought he ran a massive race. Like he showed his huge pace down the back. Again, he's a little bit draw dependent, which is for me personally, I'm looking at an anti-post market, I tend to kind of stay away from the ones that are kind of draw dependent, and he, like Sing Along Sally, he wants an inside draw. He goes left when he comes out. But in saying that, he knows how to get to these big finals too. He's an English Derby winner. He was third, I think, in this year's one. He was the one that I came away, even though he didn't win, he was the one that I came away last night thinking I wouldn't mind having a few bob on him now going forward for outright honours.
Yeah, it was a big run in defeat. I suppose the one thing about him is he's been there, he's done that, he's worn the T-shirt. He's a dog that uses his frame. He's not afraid to throw himself about a bit. He can handle the cut and thrust of it. And there will be, plenty of races in Limerick where you need to be able to show your power and your strength. Of the other heat winners, of course, we have to mention your old pal, Ballymac Wild. I think you're chairman of the Ballymac Wild fan club. Another fine display by Liam Dowling's charge. And who's to say he won't be in another Ledger final, of course. 12 months ago, he was hot favourite for the final.
Yeah, so what can you say about him? Like, you've done plenty of these now, and I'd say you're, like you say, it's an old cliche, but you run out of words from, don't you? he's something else. Yeah, he had an ideal opportunity last night. Again, it was a heat that there wasn't loads of early in. Believe it or not, I actually ended up siding with Sweep Tiard in the race, just for the purely based on the draw, and the 5 dog goes in. But it didn't matter. Wild took a flyer, and once he got to the front, it was race over. And yeah, like you say, it'll take something big to keep him out of the frame. He just knows how to get to these finals, and yeah, he's 20th win out of his 50th race last night. It's some record.
As far as the anti-post book is concerned, we are sort of between nights. It being an exchange, we're waiting on that money to come back into the exchange, but it's already over €10,000 matched on the outright market. Some fine displays last night. Although I can't imagine the market's going to change all that much. Although we did lose one or two big names, we have to mention that the defending champion, Epic Hero, is out. He got knocked over, unfortunately, in the last of the heats last night, Heat 6. It was a red-hot contest. Himself and Romeo Magico, Romeo Magico qualified back in third spot himself. Ballyhimmock and Pip, another well-fancied runner, went out. But other than that, Deadly Destroyer, Berry Bocco's Melody worth mentioning, but they were the only big names that really went out, so it shouldn't affect the anti-post market going forward. You'd imagine that when things do happen again this morning, prices go back up, that they will be prominent enough. The two that you did mention there, of course, Dearjet Sydney, he was around 15 on the exchange. You wish you'd had a nibble at that. He's probably going to go up at 12 or 13 this morning, so I wouldn't be too concerned by taking the slightly lesser price, given the fact that we already know he's guaranteed a place in the second round, considering he qualified last night. Ballymac Wild was in and around joint second favourite at around 12-13 on the exchange. So again, he won't be his price won't contract all that much. I'll tell you what we'll do, Dylan, while we're here, let's take a look at the outright fancies. You're after mentioning a couple there. Is there anything that caught your eye on the market itself?
Yeah, like I said, coming away last night, I think I'll probably go Deirdre Sydney going forward. I really like his run last night. Before last night's heats, there was a few there that I quite like. Jacob Tashadelic. I think he's one of those dogs. He starts and stays. He showed in Shelburne in the early rounds of the Derby what he's capable of. He won over 575 in Cork last week. He's a really, really good greyhound. He'd probably go for Manny Box. He didn't have much luck in the laurels, but I thought Jacob Tashadelic for me, Dearjet Sydney, and at slightly bigger prices. There's two there. They're actually in the same heat Saturday night. Two really fast greyhounds. Not the most natural of trappers, but they're not short and early either. A Pierno and Rural Star. Very, very capable. If they could get their trapping boots, they're extremely quick greyhounds.
I don't think their connections will mind me saying, though, that they are two of the most frustrating greyhounds that ever graced a racetrack. They are both unbelievably talented. I'm sick of talking to Tommy O'Donovan about Pierno. He's a bit sick of him himself, but we both know how fast he exactly is. If he can find his trapping boots, he's unbelievably quick. And Rural Star, something similar. Just that first 5 yards is the problem, because when he gets racing, he's unbelievably fast.
Yeah, they're similar, like in that way. And they're, like you said, they're trapping that lets them down, but after that they've got massive pace. Like Rural Stars dipped under 28 not that long ago in Shelburne. And like you said, Pierno, again, look, they stay. And like I said, the frustrating thing is, it's not as if they don't trap and they don't have much early anyway. They can run it, they can move to that first bend. I just thought at the bigger prices maybe they were maybe worth a stab, because they certainly have the ability, and like you talked about Pierno there, and the man that has him, he knows how to, not just knows how to get to finals, but he certainly knows how to win them.
So if Pierno goes on to win the Ledger, you'll be bringing the kids to Disney World next year, will you?
Well, I don't know about that now. We'll have to see how things go. But no, look, yeah, them two at bigger prices, and like I say, more to the top of the market. Dearjet Sydney after last night, and I do like Jacob Tashadelic too. He's got a good draw in the first round too. Would expect him to probably make all on Saturday night. And again, like I say, he starts and stays. He's a very good greyhound. They'd be mine.
Dylan, as regards Limerick, if you're looking for a greyhound, what are you looking for?
I know it was touched on in the Laurels there. The Laurels had just finished last weekend about the inside draw. I think one around Limerick is a great box too. But not as much. look, it's a big galloping track. You know, it's not far off Shelburne. It's a fine big galloping track. Honestly, I think it suits most dogs. You know, I think if you're good enough, you'll have no excuses around Limerick. You know, it's a fine track. Again, I think if you're an inside runner and I suppose in any track, if you're an inside runner and you draw the fence, it's a massive advantage. But I found from most nights I've been down in Limerick, I think, early pace and you're drawn on the fence is a massive, massive help to you. But like I say, I think it's a fair track. I wouldn't have any excuses. I think if the dog's good enough, I don't think you've any excuses down there.
Yeah, you're doing a slightly shorter run to the corner than you would be, let's say, Shelburne. It's a slightly longer, or slightly shorter run in. Back straight is long. You need to have the pace down the back to hold your position more than anything else. But you do need something that's quite trappy, I think. It's one of those tracks where you don't want to be sort of in crowding or in a bunch of greyhounds going into the bend. You want to be there on the inside on your own or on the outside with space to maneuver. I was looking down to the outright market and I'm looking through the likes of Ballymac Wild is one of those where he can do it anyway, right? But after that, you had like Dead the Destroyer, Deirdre Sydney, they were all there on the top. Obviously, Explosive Boy is the one to beat. We saw his form around Limerick in the Kirby Memorial. He's 6-1 favourite. I think he was he 7.2 yesterday? I think he gets shade over 6-1 about him. But then you look through the likes of Scooby Princess, All for the Best, Beach Avenue, Fiora Knoll, Stories Pee Wee, Price's Jet. Even the likes of Ballymac Belvolt and these were mentioned in the market. There wasn't a huge amount of early speed, so I decided to go with the early speed angle when I was looking at my anti-post selections. You stole my thunder a bit. I think Jacob Tashidelek is probably just getting there now. I think we've seen enough of him through the Derby and the Laurels to suggest that there's a run in him. And I don't mean a run as in one run. I mean as in a run of performances to come from him. I think he'll perform around Limerick because he has done in the past. The longer run to the corner should suit him from changing from a 5.25 both at at Curraheen. And we saw him handling Shelburne Park 550 very well. I think the 15 or 16 about Jacob Tashidelek is pretty big. And I agree with you on that side of things. Looking down through the list, see Knock the Bull Sid is in there at about 17, 18. Just the trial doesn't tell me he's well in himself. Last time we saw him, he just wasn't quite himself. I'm gonna put a pen through him, and it takes a lot for me to say that because he's been such a star, but he's been such a stalwart for me in particular. He took me out of a hole or two once or twice. Coom Leo is a dog I think is capable of a big run through the ledger as well. He produced one or two runs in recent times that would suggest he's ready to fly. Thereafter, I think you're looking at prices rather than racing styles. And you mentioned Pierno. Again, he's hugely frustrating, but there's no question he has the ability to get involved. Scarty Yank, it's worth pointing out, was a pretty big price before his run the other evening. I wouldn't have been a huge fan in terms of outright betting, but it was a fine run the other evening. Pat Buckley perhaps going to get a sweet tune out of this greyhound. The fact he's in the second round, but if you were getting anything around the 20 this morning or in around that, I suppose there is a little bit of value there. Other than that, again, you are sort of looking at the same old names. One dog we haven't mentioned, must mention after his recent Laurel success, One Time Only, a very taking winner down in Laurel in the Laurels in Cork. Dylan.
Yeah, he was very good. The two Donovan dogs, I looked them over more times down in Cork, and then one goes and wins and the other one goes and finishes third in the final. So that's not great work on that side. But no, look, he's very good. He's got a really good draw as well in the first round. He's drawn 4. You know yourself, he tends to move out. He took a flyer out one in the Laurels. He starts at 550. I can't see being any problem. He was hitting the line strong, and he's improving each week. Like, down in Cork, he improved with each run. It's only a week on. He's got form in. Did he run in the Kirby?
Yeah, he ran in the early rounds of the Kirby. Yeah, he actually did catch the eye one night, showed big pace down the back straight. I suppose it was a preview of what was to come. He was to suffer an injury in the Kirby. He was missing for 5 months. He returned a couple of weeks before the Laurels, had those 2 runs. But then, as you said, he improved each and every night through the Laurels. And the fact that he did that 28-17 off a 3.23 in the final of the Laurels would suggest that he's really coming into hand at the right time. if he continues to trap like that, he's a massive player in this competition.
Oh, massively, massively. And he's, like you say, he's a lovely draw in the first round. If you were on him, you'd be definitely expecting him to get through. Very little, the three inside dogs he's drawn for, the three inside dogs, I don't think that, if he comes away even level, I think he'd be too good for them. He'd be one to keep on side too. Like you said, when you've got these high-class dogs that are still improving, and that's what he is, his profile, he's only got 14 runs, he's won a Laurels, and like you say, just improving and improving, which is, you can't go wrong with them dogs, what.
He's around a 13, 14. Do you want bigger, or is that fair enough after the runs he produced the last 2 weeks?
It's probably, you'll always want bigger. It's probably fair, but you'll always want bigger, no matter what you're bad.
You've just summed up every punter in the world. You're getting 6-4 about a 2-1 chance. I'd have loved 7-4. You know what I mean? Like, greed is there, but when it comes down to it, is it fair?
I think so. Like you said it yourself there, you didn't in terms of the early pace in the competition. He is one of them that has loads of it. I think it's fair enough. I don't think, when you look at the prices of some of the others, like you touched on the likes of Ballymac Wild and that, like Ballymac Wild's not going to, what he did last night, we know it'll take, it's so hard to see him getting knocked out, but he's not going to do that every night. He's not, when he gets a heat where he's got early inside and early outside, he's going to have to do it the hard way. As we're one time only, like, if there's not many explosive by there, he's probably the best early pacer in it. Apart from that, if he keeps coming away like he has been, he's going to be getting to the bend in front, and I think it's fair enough. He's a Laurels winner. You have to really respect him now. If you're not betting the Laurels, you might say, you might think differently, but he's a classic winner, only a week ago, and he's improving. So I think it's fair enough, to be honest.
Yeah, I suppose the fact that he did beat the real speedsters to the corner in the Laurels, and he's still going at the line. There's no question he'll stay a bit further than the 525. The 550 shouldn't be a problem to him. And again, that short run in Limerick, I expect one time only. If to lead off the final bend, he'd be very hard to pick up the run in. No question about that. We will touch on Explosive Boy. He is, like, he's taken a chunk out of the market. He's I think he was 7.2 yesterday morning. Given the fact that 1 or 2 went out this morning, he'd probably be around the 6.87 this morning. He was the hottest Derby favourite going into the opening round we've had in a number of years. He was red hot favourite in the final at Kirby. Didn't happen from then. Didn't happen from the Derby final, but he was disputing favouritism on the night, despite perhaps not showing his very best form through the competition. But the fact that he has brilliant form here at Limerick, and Pat Guilfoyle has been able to give him that bit of a rest, I suppose he is a very deserving favourite, and he is the one to beat.
Without doubt. He's like you say, he's had a break as well, so he comes into it fresh. His form around Limerick, he couldn't, I know he was beaten in the Kirby final. He'd no look that night, but his form around Limerick prior to that, I think he's got 2:28.08 and the 28:15 around there in just a handful of starts. So he's hard to knock. His pace to the bend he's electric. He traps well. He's the one to beat. Like, it's, in terms of an anti-post, I suppose it depends what sort of punter you are. I would tend to.
You're more like me. You're more like me, a scattergun, 3 or 4 at big prices. Whereas there'll be men out there that'll just want a chunk in one, and he's the one that your eyes going to be drawn to.
He would be the one, to be fair. Like you say, he's just got the lot. Look, he's one of the fastest dogs in the country. If not, people have their opinion. Some people say the fastest. He's got the lot. He's won the Race of Champions. He's won a Produce Stakes. He's blistering early. He loves Limerick. You wouldn't find many holes in him now, to be fair.
But by the time we're finished this, you'll be having a chunk on.
Yeah, well, I might be talking myself into it now. So I think we may move on from him because I've enough done now.
We'll move on. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll take a look at the heats for Saturday night. Just before we go, sorry, just pin me down. Give me your 3 best bets then. Three against the field.
3 Jacob Tashadelic, Dearjet Sydney, and I throw Pierno and Rural Star into a hat, and whichever one I pick out, I'll go with.
Tell you what, we'll let you have 4. if that's the way you're going to be, right? Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to go with Explosive Boy to cover the stakes, right? Just have a small bet name to cover your stakes. I'm going to throw Jacob Tashlek into the ring. A bitch we never mentioned there, Scooby Princess. She's never run a bad race. She has won the Limerick Oaks in the past. She's very, very talented, very, very strong. Probably not going to match some of these for early speed, but again, she's going to be very hard to keep out of the frame. We didn't mention Price's Jet, his dog, who has good form around Limerick in the past. He ran well in last year's Ledger. Not going to tip him up though. Outside of them, I thought Romeo Magico might be one that was probably a bit overpriced, but just watching him last night, his trapping still isn't there. So I think we'll skip around him.
I thought he ran well last night, to be fair.
He did run okay. He took the bump on the corner and qualified in third, but he's going to have to get his trapping right. If he doesn't, you're up against it. So
the thing with him as well, Ian, is we talked about Pierno and Rural Star there, similar in terms of trapping. With Pierno and Rural Star, they can do it from behind. They stay well, as we're with Romeo Magico over 550 especially. He's going to have to turn on the bunny or very, very close to it.
If he's third into that third bend, you're looking out behind you.
Who's coming behind you, exactly. As we're, like I say, with the other two, maybe not so much to stay quite well. That's the only worry I'd have with Romeo Magico.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm struggling for another one. What have I mentioned? I've gone with Explosive Boy. I've gone with Jacob Tashlek. And my third, I'm going to go with Coom Leo. I'm going to have a small couple of quid in Coom Leo. He's a dog that can explode to a corner. He probably still lightly enough race to suggest there's still a bit of improvement there. What we'll do is we'll look through Saturday night's heats briefly. There are 10 of them in detail. We won't go into them in detail. Heat 7. The first of the heats at Limerick on Saturday evening. Don't forget that we will be offering prices on the exchange on all heats through the Matchbook Betting Exchange Irish St. Ledger. Heat 7 due off at 8:09. It's one of the weaker heats, no question about it, Dylan. A dog I was pretty taken with at Shelburne Park recently is Chiro. He's very strong, lacks a yard of early, so just a word of caution with him. Gort Kelly Nestor's well housed on the outside, ran very well in the Derby. Ballymacmerlin has always been a greyhound I've expected to get to the next level. Just never really has taken that step, but he can run. It's a contest where you can make claims for a number of them. Anything catch your eye here?
You mentioned Ballymacmerlin there. Yeah, his record is he's faster than what his record would suggest, 2 from 17, but he's got an ideal opportunity, I thought. Don't think there's loads of early in it. I could see him maybe making all. Gort Kelly Nestor's well housed. The only worry, Chiro's obviously he's only November 19. He's a half brother to Beach Avenue, so you'd imagine his future will lie over further. But he's stepping in from A3, A4 companies into the first round of a Ledger. I know it's not maybe the strongest heat. I thought Ballymacmerlin, he's coming here off a break. The 29.55 he did in Tralee was off a similar break, so he might be best caught fresh.
I wouldn't disagree with you. I think he's a very fast greyhound. Gort Kelly Nestor is the one that we know exactly what he's going to do. He's a 29.60 greyhound around Shelburne Park every night of the week, and that's probably good enough to go very close. So sort of between Ballymacmerlin and Gort Kelly Nestor.
Yeah, I think Ballymacmerlin makes all on the inside, and you'd imagine Gort Kelly Nestor will qualify as well.
Yeah. Just a reminder that you can watch all the action from the Matchbook Betting Exchange Irish St. Ledger. It'll be streamed live on Matchbook Betting Exchange on Saturday night and through the competition. So if you want to watch it, you know where to do. Have a small flutter and watch the stream live on the exchange. On to Heat 8, due off at 24 minutes past 8. Tough contest. We won't spend too much time at this. Ballyeel and Raleigh ran a fine race last Saturday night at Limerick, won in 29.64. He's going to need to reproduce that. Kilbannon Psycho can run well on the fence. That's the only draw I'd ever back her from is in red. But we know if Catch Me Flying produces it and close to his best, it's going to be hard to stop.
Yeah, he's the one to beat. Kilbannon Psycho is well drawn. She could lead. Didn't think there was loads of early in it. Give a mention to Barjo lad as well. He's he did some big runs around Newbridge. He went into Shelburne and did 28, 25, 15, 94 split. If he reproduced, he's not blessed with early, but what we can do is he can leave a box, and if he can get to the front, he'll be hard to peg back. He's capable of doing a big run.
Scarty Yank type, just a good trapper. If he holds his pitch into the bend, yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, there's not loads of early in it. So if he could take one of his flyers, he probably will find himself in front. Bit similar. He ran on Juvenile Derby final night, I think it was. He actually led Coon Leo down the back. Coon Leo proved too strong in the end. But if he got out in front in this heat now, he'd have a chance. He stays well. But yeah, Catch Me Flying is probably the one to beat. Kilban and Psycho, I think she'll be prominent enough on the rail. But I'd give a slight preference for Barjo Lad.
You're bringing in the Newbridge form, huh? You're
Yeah,
showing your lily white allegiances.
Yeah, I stayed, like, to be fair to him though, like, he did a 17:30 split that night. He won in Newbridge in 28:42, was 20 fast. And like I say, 15:94 in Shelburne the night he did the 28:25. Like, if he reproduces that, and he's capable of doing it, like, it wasn't a one-off. If he gets on the money, he could.
It's perfect time to point out the Catch Me Flying is 27:98 around Shelburne, isn't it?
Yeah, well, look, he's
hugely fast. It's just about the start with
him.
No,
he's good. And like I say, there's not much early. He could find himself fairly prominent. You wouldn't even be surprised if he led. And if he does, they won't be catching him either.
Heat 9, a couple of big names here. Beach Avenue is a dog who I think has gone off the boil somewhat, although his run the other evening was a sign that he's coming back into himself. Beach Avenue, Bella Medina Roxy's a very fast lady, but she need to get her trapping right. Fiora Knoll is very fast. 28:19 trial around Limerick last time out is evidence of that, but I don't know where he wants to be drawn yet. He's on the inside, he moves to the middle. When he's on the outside, he moves to the middle. So I suppose the middle is probably the place to be for him. He's very fast, but just isn't sharp enough as yet. But there's no question there's an engine there. They'd be my two. Fast Fit Paddy is always capable of a good run, but he was left standing by Beach Avenue last time out. I know traffic on the corner. Rahel Podge is a dog who never runs a bad race. He's pretty consistent. He'll go up strongly up the inside. It's a good little race. Beach Avenue maybe just too strong in the finish, but I suppose if you're playing on the exchanges here, there's a few that could be biggish prices.
Yeah, I actually quite like Fast Fit Paddy. I thought he was a bit unlucky last week not to turn in front. Clearly, I think he got a little bit of trouble from behind. The only worry I'd have with him is he has Rahel Podge on his inside, so he'll have to be sharp away to clear him. But I'd give a slight preference for him. Beach Avenue probably couldn't believe himself last week when he was in front as soon as he was, but he just does what he does, and he just stayed on powerfully, won by 13 lengths. Fiora Knoll, like you say, he's loads of pace. Just don't know where he wants to be drawn. I'd go Fast Fit Paddy to make all. Hopefully just comes out ahead of Rahel Podge and gets around in front.
Yeah, okie dokie. Moving on to Heat 10, I'm going to leave this one short and sweet. Explosive Boy to make all?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I wouldn't mind a 13-8 on top of the race card.
Yeah, you won't be getting that nowhere near it.
I'd say you could reverse that 8-13 more so, maybe even shorter. Not people see it as in 5. Sentimental Lad is a nice dog. He's out in trap 6. He ran very well at Shelburne Park October 9th to win a 29:57. But this is another step up, and he's going to have to be at his very, very best. So too Night Tornado, who's shown signs of a return to form of late. He's 11. The aforementioned Scooby Princess and Priceless Jet both run in this contest. They're out in 5 and 6. Blast Off Harry's a dog that's promised plenty in the past, perhaps a bit disappointing. Derby's Delight is as fast as any greyhound in training. Slightly blotted his copybook at September 11th in Shelburne Park, but he seems likely to play a part, be it in the latter stages rather than the early stages.
Yeah, he's like you say, he's extremely fast. I actually had him backed anti-post for the memorial in Shelburne, and he obviously didn't get to the final because he was marked awkward. If you look back on that run, it'll just prove to you, if anyone is wondering what we're talking about being the fastest in the country, he was given Skywalker Barry, I'd say 8 or 9 lengths down the back that night. He got bet by 2. He was running from 5 or 6 behind Sweep the Art to pick him up on the line. He had a little look across. He went on about his business after that. It's not ideal. It's obviously a worry you'd have with him going forward. But in terms of his ability, you're spot on. He is one of the fastest dogs in the country. Like, his pace is massive.
You can be absolutely sure that Neil O'Connell's had him in therapy. He's been lying on the couch speaking to the dog about his problems, and I have no doubt we'll see him running sweet as a nut for the next few weeks, and hopefully we'll get to see him producing his best.
Yeah, I'd say he had the dog whisperer in, and he's hopefully he's you get him right. There's no doubt in his ability, and he's one of them. He'll be very hard to keep out of the frame. He's so quick. Scooby Princess, I actually think she has a chance of leading here.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think if that's the case, she wins.
Yeah, she wins if she leads. Of course, yeah, she wins. She's an unbelievable bitch. And similar to Priceless Jet, like you wouldn't be surprised if one of them led. It's one of them races. I slight preference for Scooby Princess, but again, if Priceless Jet gets on the bunny, you'll do well to pick him up too. You probably won't, to be honest.
He did a 16:38 sprint trial around Kilkenny.
Kilkenny.
That's a hell of a sprint run.
Yeah, he's not, but he can go up well. And like you said, it's a race where there's not much early. I can see one of them leading. Be some crack if Derby's light turns in front.
Yeah, sure would. We're moving on quickly through the last few heats. Your stream is just a few seconds behind us there, Dylan. So I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll wrap it up pretty quick. Jacob Tashlek, heat 12, away and gone.
Yeah, I think he makes all on the rail. Mallows Marley might chase him home. Not sure after that. Warwick Avenue's down to run tonight, I think. So I'm not sure what the crack is there, but he'll probably run tomorrow night too.
Yeah, he's very strong. I wouldn't like a couple of runs in a row wouldn't be a big problem for him. He's running a final actually at Shelburne Park tonight. Heat 13, one time only. The Laurels winner races from Trap 4. The big dangers on the outside. Stories Pee-wee and Swords Maestro. But you'd expect one time only to have too much early speed for them. And if he does hit the front early, expect another big run from this star.
Yeah, he's the one to beat. Like you say, I wouldn't worry too much about the insides. I don't think they're good enough. We haven't got the prices yet. I'd keep an eye on the prices. If Swords Maestro, one time only might make Swords Maestro a bit of a price. I think he has a right chance in it. One time only gets on the bunny, of course, he'll take beating. But Swords Maestro turned on his tail, you wouldn't know. I think he's a talented dog as well.
He's a very fast greyhound. I'm pretty confident Coom Leo is the one to beat in Heat 14. Any different view?
I struggle on this actually. Yeah, I wouldn't have a strong opinion on it. I had it between 3, 4, and 5. The 5 dog is in great form around Limerick as well. 29.54, 29.53 in his last few runs. I would imagine though Coom Leo might be too quick to the bend for him, and if he leads, he wins. Monrod Thunder though will be a fly in the ointment on the inside. He can go up well too. I slight preference for the 5 dog, but I wouldn't be having a bet on it personally. You could be spot on with Coom Leo, yeah.
Trust me, Coom Leo makes all. Moving on to Heat 15, the two greyhounds we've spoken of plenty. You have to choose between one of them, Pierno or Rural Star. I'll go with Pierno.
Well, sure, we'll have to go with Rural Star, so we can't. We're already after putting the knockers on Jacob Tashadelic. We can't put them pull out Pierno as well.
And Heat 16, the last of the heats, Drayton Jet is a dog that ran well through the Laurels, but Russian Glory is a dog I think an awful lot of. I'm a slight concern about the draw out in Trap 6. I'd prefer him slightly more to the middle. The Global Prima dog is an interesting runner. He's unbeaten after 3, but I think Russian Glory is one for the future. I was actually disappointed with him the last night. He won in 28.53. I thought he'd go faster, and I've no doubt he'll go faster in the future. Over 550 yards, I can't see it being a problem. I think he's a really nice dog and one to look forward to.
Yeah, he's a nice dog. You talk about the last night he ran. I thought he was an absolute penalty kick that night, and I, like you, thought he was. I thought he was going to lead all and do about 28-20 or something like that. But look, he won. Yeah, he's a big player. I think Drahan Jet might make all here. I'm hoping he gets on the bunny. I'd love to see him on the bunny again, especially over this trip, and just see what he can do. The Global Prima dog, again, inexperienced, but obviously has a big future ahead of him. 28.39 trial. Looks between maybe them 3. Slight preference for Jahan Jet. I think he might make all if he stays.
Well, there you are. Some differing opinions through a few of the heats, but that's it. We've gone through the remaining 10 heats in the Matchbook Betting Exchange Irish St. Ledger. A reminder that there is that bonus code. If you want to sign up, bet €10, get €10 free. The bonus code is Greyhounds, all in capitals. And again, the Matchbook Betting Exchange, all heats, anti-post will be priced up from here on in. Again, 10 heats on Saturday night. You can watch the stream live on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. But that's it from myself and Dylan this morning. We'll be back next week to bring you our best bets. Perhaps again, look at the anti-post, talk about some of the best performances in the opening round. But that's it from us this week. Enjoy the Matchbook Betting Exchange Irish Greyhounds St. Ledger. Sounds great to say that. We're into it now, full flight. Saturday night, expect some brilliant performances.